thank you for joining us again. So today we have a very special guest, Tanja Gardner. So Tanja is from Crystal Clarity Copywriting, and Tanja is a professional copywriter and book editor. So obviously with our businesses, this is something amazing that we need to learn more about, and definitely something that Tanja will be able to give us some clarity on as well. So thank you very much for joining us, Tanja.
You're welcome. It's awesome to be here.
Excellent. So we've got a couple of, I put it out to to the girls in the Special She Club, just what questions they would love to ask a copywriter. And we came up with a couple. So one of the things that I find come up a lot with new startup entrepreneurs is creating creative content. So what's a tip that you could give for anyone sort of starting out about creating that creative content? That's a mouthful to say, isn't it?
Well, I think the key is to know who you're writing for. You need to know who your audience is, what they're struggling with, what they dream of having if they weren't struggling. And you need to know the language they use as well. So it can really help once you started getting, talk to people, connect with them, get into conversations, watch the conversations that happen in Facebook communities and forums, and build yourself a little ideas list of the things that people really want to know about. And then imagine that you're sitting down to a cup of coffee with someone who is just a perfect fit for the person that you would like to work for. And imagine what questions they would ask you and how you'd answer them.
Yeah, excellent. And it's true. Hey, right? They say to write to your ideal client like they're your best friend, and like you're writing specifically to them. And that's your experience as well.
Absolutely. I think sometimes it actually depends on who your perfect people are, because sometimes writing to them as though they're your best friend, let's say you've got an accountancy business or I don't know, something a bit more corporate. That would actually probably be a bit off-putting for them.
Yeah.
But imagine that they were there in front of you and that you were going to talk to them just the way that you would, the way I'm talking to you now.
Yeah.
Whatever is appropriate to that conversation, and then just write that conversation that you're having. I'd also say don't panic about, oh my God, I have to make this creative. Because there's no quicker way to block your creativity than to stress about it.
Yeah.
It's just focus on that person that you're writing to. What do they most need? What are they confused about? You'll hear a lot of people talk about the 3 a.m. problems, what keeps you up at 3 a.m. worrying. And that can be appropriate in some cases, but sometimes it's just like, man, this thing is really annoying and I wish I could deal with it. And meet that person where they are. So you're not telling them this is a problem for you. You're listening and you're reflecting and just meeting them where they are.
Yeah, excellent. That's a really good tip, actually. So when you're starting out, obviously in the business, one of the things I find when we are sort of creating our websites or our newsletters, things like that, what do you think is really important for that sort of structure of content when we're building the foundations, I guess, of the business?
I think the biggest thing I would say is don't try and do it all on your own. Don't try and be an island and think that you have to go right from the beginning. You have to know exactly what your perfect people want, and you've got to write the first draft and come and edit it and polish it and then publish it, and that you should have to do all of that on your own. One of the mistakes a lot of people don't realize, but I actually had a business as a stress management coach and personal trainer about 8-9 years ago now, and I knew lots about personal training. I knew lots about stress management. Knew nothing about business. And I just tried to do everything on my own. I was in this little island of the Tanya-verse. And I had no idea what I was doing. And it really shouldn't surprise anyone that business completely crashed and burned. And I figured that I was no good at business. What I did when I started up Crystal Clarity was that even before I went live with my business, I spent time reaching out, making connections, building relationships. And that's not always easy because I'm massively introverted. Most people don't, again, unless they already know me online, they don't realize I'm a massive introvert. Confident, but I need my alone time.
Yeah.
So reaching out to people wasn't really in my comfort zone. But I started just joining groups, online groups that I was interested in, where I felt like I had something to contribute to the conversation and something that I could learn from the conversation. So I was going to actually get benefit out of being in those groups regardless. But they were also where my ideal clients hung out. So I could watch what those conversations were that they were having. I could jump in and talk to people and very nervously at first kind of contribute my own expertise and my own advice. And some of those people turned into paying clients later, and others have referred paying clients onto me.
Yeah.
And I think it all comes from not feeling like I have to do it all in a vacuum.
Yeah. I think that's really important. And I had a similar scenario to yourself. I became a health coach, studied for 12 months, went out, knew everything about everything I needed to except setting up a business, which is how I learned to do a lot of this stuff. But I did try to do it all by myself, and it didn't get me anywhere. I had some fancy stuff set up because I Googled it and set it up, but I didn't actually have any.
Yep.
So
total recipe for overwhelm and insanity.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's the thing. A lot of people do get overwhelmed because setting up a website, for one, the tech element of it is very confusing in itself. But then to think that they have to actually get in there and create the copy and
write all the copy. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually one of the things that just came up as we were speaking. A lot of my ladies have a lot of a real tough time writing their about page. And do you come across that? And is there a special formula for an about page?
All right. So the first thing you need to know about the way that I do copywriting, and in fact, the way I do pretty much everything, is I have one underlying mantra. There is no one right way. Yeah. There is no one formula that's going to work for everyone. And the key things that I would say for an about page is to remember that every page on your website is about your client in some way. It's about what they want. It's about what they're looking for. Your about page is about you, but it's about you in as much as it's important to your client. So a lot of people think that they have to give their whole life story, or I'm seeing a lot of people who use the 10 random things about me trope in their about page. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you remember that everything you tell your clients should in some way be relevant to them. So it might be that you are a mixed media artist. Now, if you're a creativity coach, that's really obviously going to be relevant to your clients. But you might also, say, be a business coach who works with creative types. And if so, talking about being a mixed media artist, again, is really relevant to your people. It's going to show them that you know where they're coming from.
Yeah.
If you are, let's go back to the accountant, and you know, you're an accountant for, you specialize in working with yoga teachers and other alternative is the wrong word, but other wellness professionals.
Yeah.
Then it's kind of like, unless you can find a way that being a mixed media artist is going to be really relevant to your perfect people, it's probably not something to put in your about page. And I think just weighing everything through the filter is of, why is this important to my perfect people? How does it help me to create connection with them? How does it help me? How does it help them to know whether or not they resonate with me?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, excellent. I think that's really, really good point. And it is. It can. People do think the about page is all about them, and that I think that's.
And it is, but only.
Yeah, it is about them.
Yeah.
I have ladies
And
write me a novel basically, and you know, I think it's knowing sort of that how much is good and how much, you know, they need to put in there and how much they can sort of keep to themselves as well. So
yeah, I've actually just been working with an awesome client on her about page.
Yeah.
And we started with her story was about a page and a half, and it was good that she gave that to me, because it allowed me to look at and find out, okay, what are the really relevant points of contact here?
Yeah.
What do I absolutely need to make sure goes into the about page? But with her life story, I think we got it down to about 3 paragraphs.
Excellent. Yeah.
And you know, and each of those. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say that's great that you can do that, because that's the part that a lot of people struggle with, is they can write it, but it's then trying to break it down into that important stuff.
Yeah, it's identifying which parts of this are going to make my ideal people realize that they are my ideal people, because that's what your about page is. It's something that helps people get to know you better. And when you're a wellness professional, when you're a coach, when you're somebody in the industry, that effectively what you're selling is yourself. You are so much a part of the service that you give. Your personality, your values, they're all so much a part of the service that you give someone, that it's really natural for somebody who comes to your page to look at your services page and then think, sounds interesting, but who's the person behind them? And that's where this about page comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess in saying that as well, I know before we started, we were quickly chatting about writing newsletters, and an amazing new thing that you're coming up with for creative newsletters, which I love.
Still working on.
Yeah, but it's going to be amazing. So I can't wait when it comes out to be able to shout out for that for you. But with the newsletters, then the same thing. Like, people just don't know where to start. And I guess I've heard, and I've seen, because, you know, you sign up for so many newsletters. I'm a pretty bad person like that.
Yeah.
I have about 20, and I just don't feel like, I feel bad for unsubscribing. But you see different styles. So you see, excuse me, obviously you see the very salesy, just straight in there, you know, get you with click here and click here and click here. Or you get the ones where maybe they tell you, I was sort of taught to have a little bit of a, you know, how you going, how's things, a little bit of a spiel about how things are, and then start discussing sort of what's happening. Is there anything sort of, any, I guess, formula or structure or anything that you see that sort of works best?
Again, I come back to that no one right way.
Yeah.
And anything can work for the right people.
Yeah.
Even the most slimy, salesy, sleazy thing can work for the right people.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the key is to figure out what's the best way of getting across your message. So the way I see newsletters is that they're there to fulfill 3 purposes. 1, they let you keep in touch with your tribe. So you're building a relationship with them. You are front of their mind when they read your content. So even if they don't want to buy something from your newsletter, if they suddenly discover a week down the track that they really need a newsletter course, it's like, oh, Tanya does that. Man, I should check her out. Or if they know somebody That's the other thing. If somebody says to them, I have no idea what to write in my newsletter, and they suddenly remember that they'd read in yours the week before that, you're offering this, then they can refer that person through to you.
Yeah.
So it's that relationship building. There's also an element of you're building credibility, you're building authority, you're showing people by week after week or fortnight after fortnight, however often you send them, if you are sending them articles and information that is actually genuinely useful for them, it means that they start thinking of you as somebody who knows what they're talking about, or knows what you're talking about, I should say.
Yeah.
So you're building relationships, you're building credibility, and of course, I don't want to tell anyone to be afraid of including sales information in their newsletters, because the fact is you run a business.
Exactly.
It's okay to offer people things that will help them and expect money for it. This is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to be constantly sold to, but I think, especially in the heart-based business space, we tend to get nervous that the moment we put any sales information in at all, we're going to be accused of spamming people, and they're all going to unsubscribe in droves.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if you are not sending information that is relevant to the people you're sending it to, it doesn't matter if it's sales or articles, they're still going to unsubscribe because it's not relevant to them.
Yeah.
If it's sales and it's really relevant to them, then they may well buy. They might not as well. They might not be in the right place for it, but at least they'll know that you do it.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, actually, and it does work for some people. I know some amazing coaches who that is their structure, and it's, that's the structure of every email, but I still find myself reading them, even though I know what it's going to be, that it's that sales pitch or whatever it is.
Yep.
But I still find myself reading. So maybe, the storyteller part comes into it sometimes too.
Absolutely. For myself, I have a newsletter that I send out kind of fortnightly.
Mine's fortnightly.
I am, one of the things I tell my people when I work with them is, honestly, nobody cares. If you say that you're going to send out your email every 2 weeks on a Wednesday, if it goes out on a Thursday, it's honestly not the end of the world. And even if you miss a week and it's 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks, the reality is that very few people are actually tracking how often you send your emails.
Yes, very true.
They've got their own businesses to focus on. The key is that you do consistently email, that you do consistently stay in touch, that you consistently provide value, and that people develop expectations of what you're going to send them over time.
Yeah.
So if I always send out copywriting related information, that's all I do, then if I suddenly out of the blue one day send them a newsletter that says, I'm on holiday this week and look at these gorgeous pictures of me by the poolside, it's going to be like, what? Who sent this? Did your account get hacked or something? Yeah. And at the same point, if it's one of the downsides of trying to always send personal connecting information with no sales in sight, is that the moment you do send something salesy, it goes against people's expectations.
Yeah.
And at that point, you might get somebody accusing you of spamming, but they'd be wrong, because spamming has a very specific meaning. It means that you're sending commercial email that hasn't been requested, and they're on your list because they requested it. But it's that thing of, if you always send non-salesy stuff, that one time that you do send a sales thing, it's going to be out of character, and it's going to be what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to freak them out.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much. So just to finish off, one of the things that I guess can be confusing is just copyright in general. So when you first start out, it's like, do I need to like copyright everything that I actually write, or do I need to, like put a special branding mark on it to know it's me, or like how does that all work?
Okay, so the key thing you need to understand is that the difference between copyright with an R-I-G-H-T and copywriting with W-R-I-T-I-N-G.
Yes.
So copyright, what you're talking about there is a matter of law. It's intellectual property law, and it's something that I have no idea about.
Yeah. That's all good.
So what I would suggest is if somebody has questions about copyright, and they want to know whether they should use a trademark, whether they should use a registered mark, what the law is in their country, what the law is internationally, they've got to go talk to a lawyer.
Yeah.
Somebody who specializes in IP.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I meant, and that was really important too, to define the two for everyone. But I guess with writing, just different words or phrases and things like that in general, it is pretty much, once it's published and posted, it is sort of your own intellectual property, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think as I understand it, if you publish something on your blog, publish even something on Facebook, although Facebook would probably disagree with you on this, the fact that you've written it makes it your property.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you can't copyright ideas.
Yeah.
So it's the specific words and phrases rather than the concept.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And so when you're doing, when you're helping people with their copy and things like that, is there a process you have to go through to make sure that, because there's so many words out there, it would be tricky not to accidentally, mix some up. So is there a process you have to go through usually to make sure?
No. But I mean, it would be really hard for you to word for word.
Yeah.
Parallel evolve a web page or a blog post or something. It'd be really hard for you to do that accidentally.
Yeah.
So I just work on the basis, when I'm working with a client, if we end up doing one-to-one copywriting together, I have a whole process that I follow. I start by sending them a pretty intense questionnaire that gives me an overview of who they are, who their perfect people are, what their perfect people deal with, what they want instead, a bit of information about the offering, all that sort of stuff, so that I really have a clear understanding of who they are and who their perfect people are, and how I write for those perfect people. Because I'm not writing for them. I'm writing for the people who are going to read it.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, I also need to make it sound authentic, like the person who's writing. And I've actually had this comment a couple of times from clients. Best compliment ever is when a client comes back to me and says, okay, that is really eerie. That looks like I wrote it. And it's like, when somebody tells me that, it's awesome, because it means I've got their voice perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I'm writing something for you, if I say do your about page, you and I would talk for 60 minutes beforehand. I'd get you to send me all the information that might even peripherally be relevant to the page. I'll also get you to give me examples of pages that you really like and pages that you really dislike. So I'll go through those and look for patterns to get ideas of, okay, what are the common threads between the things that you like and the things that you don't like? And then I can make sure that I weave those concepts, make sure I include the stuff you like and don't ever go anywhere near the stuff you don't like.
Yeah.
And then I would send you a first draft of what I've put together. And then you go through it, and every now and then it's really awesome when it happens. I've nailed it for you on the first draft, and you just look at it and say, nope, that sounds exactly like I would have written if I could write like you. It's wonderful when that happens, but it doesn't always.
Yeah.
Because there'll be things that you think of between our session and getting the first draft. There'll be little words that I can imagine you saying, but you look at it and say, no, I'd never say that. That's not me. And so you then point out anything that you want changed. I go away and edit that for you, send it back to you, and then you get another pass of edits if you need it. So what you end up with is something that sounds exactly like you to describe your exact service or your exact bio or your exact whatever it might be for your exact clients. And, you know, if there's somebody else out there who serves exactly the same clients and has exactly the same voice as you, then that's pretty, I don't think I'm aware of that ever having happened in the history of certainly my business.
Yeah.
It's always unique to the person involved.
Yeah, exactly. I think what I see is a lot of the ladies who are coming out of certain courses and like for health coaching, for example, and they do see a lot of the same writing and words, and a lot of the times
coffee school.
Yeah, a lot of the time the copy can look similar, and I have heard of instances where people have felt like, you know, it has been not as organic, I guess. But that's why I guess working with someone like yourself takes those words that everyone else has been listening to and puts that into their own words rather than them still hearing the other words around them.
Yeah. One of the things that people, I find, especially with new coaches, it's not by any chance, not by any stretch of the imagination limited to coaches, but I see a lot of it in coaches, is that a lot of the time they've been studying towards their coaching certification for certainly months, sometimes years. And in that time, they've been absolutely immersed in the language and jargon of coaching. And that's awesome when they're talking to other coaches. But the reality is that nobody outside of a coaching certification talks about stepping into their highest potential.
Yes.
You know? Nobody outside of a business course or a money coach talks about standing in your own value. It's understanding, how do your perfect people talk about this stuff? When they come to you and they say, I've got a real problem with whatever it might be, what's the language they use?
Yeah.
What are the adjectives they use to describe how they feel? And what are the specific situations they talk about that whatever it is that they're having the problem with is either stopping them from doing that they want to do or forcing them to do that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
And that's where the copywriting nuggets are. It's in those kinds of words and terminology.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so funny because one of the things we get taught as coaches is to listen to those words ourselves when they're speaking to us, our clients, to be able to help them attach with that emotion. And it is so true when it comes to our copy as well. We have to do the same thing. So that was really a great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for that, Tanja. Or Tanja. Tanja?
Either way.
I know. Like
I said, as long as it's not or you.
Yeah. I get Teressa or Teresa, and I'm happy with either. So, so what I wanted to do, though, I know that you've got an amazing business at the moment, and I know you've got stuff coming up that, you know, you can't sort of talk about because it's coming up. But if anyone wanted to work with you, which I know there will be because you've got an amazing talent there, how can people get in touch with you and work with you?
All right. So the first thing I'd say is, if you just want to check out who I am and what I do, I have a downloadable freebie that is a guide to writing web pages that people actually read. Because what nobody teaches you when you're starting up in business is that people read totally differently on screen to the way that they read in print. And something that you're used to writing that would be perfectly fine in an academic environment or in a corporate environment, people will just glaze over and click away because it's too hard for them to read it on screen. So this is actually the first freebie that I created after my business went full time, and it's still so popular that I haven't stopped offering it yet.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's called How to Make Your Web Page Crystal Clear.
Excellent.
And they can get that from my web page. I'm pretty sure I've got a link to it on the first page down the bottom on the home page.
I'll add a link in for the ladies as well so that they can click through after our chat today.
Awesome sauce. Okay. And the second thing is that I also run a free Facebook community, and I describe it as it's a place for heart-based business folk who never wanted to be copywriters. It's like, that's not what they're trained to do. They want to be out there helping people, not staring blankly at a screen, clawing their eyes out because they can't figure out what to write. Don't do that. It's not worth it.
No.
So basically, the group just exists. It's a place where people can ask for feedback, ask for help. We share writing intentions at the beginning of the week and writing celebrations at the end of the week. And there's a place if you've got an offer, that you can share that offer, because you're going to share the page that you've written it up on. I call it the writing share day. So I would totally love to have any of your ladies who would like that kind of support.
Yeah, perfect.
I think between those two things.
Yeah. Oh, what's the name of the page? Sorry.
It's called the Crystal Clear Copywriting Tribe.
Easy. Awesome. Thank you.
And I would say that basically those two free things will give you a feel for who I am. You'll find that my passion is clarity. I'm not one of these copywriters who's all about making you stand out from the crowd with these big, bold, audacious claims. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want, there are copywriters out there who will be perfect fit for you. That's not me, though. I'm about the clarity. I'm about helping your perfect people to understand exactly what it is that you do, exactly how you can help them. And that way you get to make, meet more clients and make more sales and make more of a difference in the world.
Yeah, excellent. And I think that's great. We were actually, I was just speaking to Vanessa before that previously about, getting a taste of working with someone by these amazing offerings, either in the Facebook group or checking out your handout and really getting a feel of what it's all about for copywriting, and also what it's like to work with you. So that's a really great go down, I think.
Yeah, basically if somebody's looking for a copywriter, they'll get a feel for me through those things, and then they'll know whether or not they want to get in touch. I think rather than saying, talk to me here, just check those out. It's a very no pressure way of getting to know someone.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's perfect. Thank you so much for that. And I really appreciate you giving us your time today and your insight, because as I said, it's something
you're very welcome.
I know a lot of my coaches really struggle with is a lot of the content creation and just knowing exactly sort of how to go about it. Definitely helped us make it clear.
Yay!
I really love it.
That's what I'm all about.
That's creative as well. I love it. I love that. I love your name. I think that's great. Excellent. Well, thanks so much for that. And hopefully we'll
totally welcome.
Seeing you around a lot more in the future.
I would very much like that.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.